What's up out there, FA Nation? It's time for another edition of Fantasy Alarms Sports Talk, coming to you every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Jen Piacenti, and I'm joined today by none other than the real James Grande. We get a rematch. We did this last week. We had so much fun, so we're getting a repeat performance. I'm really excited to be here with you. How are you today?
Good. And just like last week, we had a ton of news break kind of before we hopped on stream. And here we are again with a ton of news breaking right before stream. So,
I mean, and where do we even start? Okay, I think we're just going to start with MLB today, guys. But this is going to be fast and furious. We're going to start with MLB, have some conversation. We may even give you a couple hints for your DFS today. Then we'll move over to NFL. We have NFL news. We have a draft to break down. So much going on. So let's hit the ground running. All right. First of all, it looks like Gleyber Torres just left the game with an unknown injury. So keep your eyes on that, guys. And Alex Bregman has officially been moved to the IL for his hamstring. On that note, I want to say one of the not great things, but one of the good things about drafting a player with positional flexibility is you have more options to replace Alex Bregman over the next 10 days because you can draft basically any infielder and probably move it around in your lineup. So that's one of the reasons I am a proponent of drafting multiple position eligibility players. And then finally, Yordan Alvarez is out for the season. I think those are the three biggest injury headlines. Do you have any other injury headlines that caught your eye?
No, I mean, those are 1, 2, and 3 in order. With Gleyber happening most recently, along both of our teams, Jen, because I am a Yankees fan and you are an Astros fan, are reeling to say the least right now in terms of injuries. And but we're both,
but they're both
still over 500 and first and second respectively. And Tampa's quickly gaining ground because we can't beat them, and you're chasing Oakland, but I mean, still sitting pretty despite all these injuries.
And there are 16 teams going to the playoffs this year. So, of course, that also opens the conversation for what's going to happen with trades coming up. There's some names that have been mentioned. We can mention a few pitchers. In fact, what do you think about the possibility of someone like Mike Clevenger or Zach Plesac going somewhere? I mean, they've obviously been voted off the island in Cleveland. What do you think the chances are they'll get moved?
I mean, I think Clevenger is the big fish there in terms of just pitching talent, like just raw talent. I think Plesac kind of overperformed last year. If you look at his ERA compared to his xFIP and Sierra, over a run and a half higher than his ERA. So he was a bit lucky. His BABIP was also like 230. That generally doesn't happen for a pitcher. So do I think there's value for Plesac? Sure, but I don't think Cleveland would get as much in a return as they would for Clevenger. I mean, this is a guy people were picking to win a Cy Young in a shortened season this year. So I think Clevenger is the bigger catch. Now, will anyone be willing to take on two guys who are clearly not careful or don't care about what's going on, with COVID and with the rules, and players that, just beat cancer around his own teammate, and they clearly, committed selfish acts there, and then tried to even double down on that. Double down on that lie to begin with. So, I mean, I think there will be a team out there because talent, unfortunately, trumps personality in the person sometimes. And so I think Clevenger's the bigger catch. I think Plesac can be a middle of the rotation guy for a contender. I mean, either of our teams could use a middle of the rotation guy right now. So, would I be upset? No. But I don't think Plesac puts you over the edge to a World Series as opposed to Clevenger at his peak would.
Yeah, I agree. I think Clevenger's definitely the prize here in places that he could go. Atlanta really needs a starting pitcher. But I echo your sentiments. The talent is going to trump. I mean, we saw Roberto Osuna sign in Houston. We saw Aroldis Chapman sign with the Yankees. Again, our two teams. And when it's this short of a season, you're in a drive to win. They're going to make that move. It's not often that you could get someone like Clevenger. Now, we're not saying the Indians are trading Clevenger. We're just saying that it looks like that's something that could be a possibility. And you know what? What they did with Carlos Carrasco being on the team especially is pretty crummy. It's not going to be a good feeling in that clubhouse. So he's probably not any good to Cleveland anymore, is my thought. So Now, even bigger news. We have so much. So last night, Reds broadcaster Tom Brenneman was suspended for using a very negative slur about the LGBT community. And he, one of the more interesting things I've ever seen, in the middle of his apology, he called a Nick Castellanos home run. So, professional, not professional, how do you feel about this? I mean, he had a hot mic on, he used an obvious slur. People are coming out in defense saying he's a really good guy. We're not questioning he's not a good guy on some level, but it was fairly offensive what he said. And, should he be speaking like that at all, whether the mic is hot or not?
I mean, he shouldn't be speaking like that regardless, especially with any chance of being heard on any form of, television or radio. I mean, you shouldn't use it anyway, but you're mic'd up. First and foremost, you're mic'd up. You've been doing it for 30 plus years. Like that's, your dad did it. So you've known the business forever. Right. I think it was literally outlandish that he called that Nick Castellanos home run. I think that was the last thing that should have been on his mind. I don't think he should have in the first place, because he did it, I believe, in the first game, because it was a doubleheader, and even if it wasn't the first game, he continued to call into the fifth inning, and the Reds allowed it. I know they probably had to get someone on the mic and replace, which did happen. But he should have not only been suspended, I think he should have been removed from his position permanently, which we still don't know if that's going to be the long-term solution. It should be. If you're the Reds, you fire him. I don't think you ever bring him back. I don't think you can bring him back, whether he's a good guy or not. It happened, and I know people make mistakes, and I get that, but that's, that is very insensitive for him to say, and that's just the most unprofessional thing that you could probably do as a broadcaster. As
a broadcaster, that's kind of like 101. Your mic is hot. So just, whatever your personal beliefs are, just be at least good about your job.
Right.
On top of it. So, and as you said, his father did this for many years. It's not like he's new to it. He's not a kid. Right. So yeah, it was very strange. And just the way that the apology happened with the home run, very, very bizarre. So many crazy things going on, though, here in the MLB, right? We are just, we've complained for a long time, like, why is MLB losing fans? What can we do to get fans back? Well, a few days ago, we've all heard this story. Fernando Tatis at the plate, bases loaded, 3-0, swung away, grand slam, got in trouble, was forced to apologize on TV. Then the next day, and this is the best part, they're up by 6. The guy steals third base. I mean, he just is single-handedly burning this unwritten rule book. And on top of that, the Padres, 3 games in a row, just passed the baton along, grand slamming. Do you think there's any coincidence that this superpower those 3 days in a row and Fernando Tatis starting it off? Do you think it can't be a coincidence. He lit a fire. Like, they're coming out to play now. I personally think this is what baseball wants. They want to see winners. They want to see people fighting. And in a 60-game season, it's a short season. Every game counts. And the Padres could be one of the most exciting teams in baseball right now, ready to win. What are your opinions on this whole situation? The Padres, Tatis, grand slams, and the state of baseball.
I think the state of baseball is in shambles. Let's start with there.
Yeah.
Because they just don't. Nothing, like, as a young kid or like trying to get into the sport, like, screams like, wow, that's exciting. Other than players like Fernando Tatis. Honestly, like, if you're a young kid, like, watching baseball on TV, I mean, look, we all know Mike Trout and Christian Yelich, and they're the best players in baseball. I'm willing to say right now on this day that Fernando Tatis is the face of the game, just maybe based on what he's done in this short season. I mean, I think it's fair, like, if we were to translate it to NBA, we know LeBron and Giannis are the best 2 players, but right now, Damien Lillard, the most outspoken, has performed the best. He's he's everyone's hero. Everyone loves Damien Lillard as kind of the face of basketball. I think that's kind of what Tatis is doing right now. I think he's shoving in the face of everyone with that steal. Plus, the steal was on the guy who threw behind Machado, which I thought was hilarious. And then he hits his 12th home run the next night. I think the Padres are really good. I think they have a lot of young talent, guys that were just kind of like, oh, we know the Tatis, we know, Eric Hosmer, we know Manny Machado. Jake Cronenworth is hitting 330. Jurickson Profar has hit a home run in back-to-back games. Like, they have pitchers in Paddock and Lamet who finally is healthy, who has a 30% K rate. I mean, they're exciting, and I think you're right. I think this did light a fire in the players. And it's interesting. I wonder if they're like I wonder how the clubhouse reacted to their manager not backing Tatis, because I think that's a disgrace. I think, I mean, you're not backing one of the, if not the best player in baseball at this very moment. Just in the game right now, because with everything he's doing. So I think that was a disgrace, personally.
It's like, look, Padres, this is the first time you've had a primetime game on TV. Don't ruin it. You may have something rolling here with this kid. It's just unbelievable to me. But anyway, what do you think next year? Tatis going to go number 1, number 2, number 3? I mean, he leads the league in home runs and RBI right now. He's got stolen bases.
I mean, this is like the Ronald Acuna effect from last year. Yeah. We see Acuna almost 40-40, and he's top 3 on everyone's draft board. The thing is, Tatis is hitting for a better average than Acuna did last year. I would not be surprised if he continues this pace. He is the number 1 pick next year, because if he's also if he's gonna steal this many bases and he's also going to like lead the league potentially in that category, a category that's just dry. Let's just face it, it's just a dry category where very limited. You're rostering people in deep leagues that like are platoon players because you just need steals. He's going number 1. Obviously Trout, Yelich, but Yelich isn't doing himself any favors. Acuna has been banged up, and Trout has been Trout. But if he's not going to steal bases, what's more valuable? I'm gonna go Fernando Tatis.
That's right. And what's interesting to me is we're going to have next year's going to be really difficult for us as analysts, right? Because we're going to be trying to draw conclusions from a 60-game sample size, and then try to combine that with what happened the year before, then adding in injuries and age. It's going to be very, very tricky. And I feel like, Mike Trout's probably still going to be the 101 for most people, just because we've seen the longevity and it's just consistency. But right there, number 2, is Cody Bellinger still in the conversation? Is Christian Yelich there? Because Christian Yelich, what is he batting? 200? Yep. I mean, and Trout and Yelich both play for losing teams, and maybe Tatis is going to be playing for a winning team, and Acuna too. So it's going to be, and obviously Bellinger. That run differential is ridiculous for the Dodgers. But anyway, I digress. More excitement in MLB. If you want to talk about people that ruffled people's feathers, I actually admit that I agreed with Trevor Bauer's tweet about Fernando Tatis Jr., but then immediately he annoyed me because he decided he had to wear free Joe Kelly cleats, and he turned it into a contest on his Twitter, which is just like gross to me, his self-promotion, but whatever. I do appreciate that he is getting eyes on the game. What do you think? Should he have been allowed to wear his free Joe Kelly cleats?
Yeah. I mean, again, we need baseball to be spiced up. We need like shortened outfield walls with like pools behind it so players can like jump in and catch. We need Trevor Bauer to wear whatever cleats he wants. We need things that draw attention to the game. And that's all Trevor Bauer ever does. And he's been backing it up on the field. The guy's been pitching lights out. So, I mean, he broke it down pretty well in his string of tweets where he broke down the rules that Rob Manfred and MLB set aside, what you can do, what you can't do. And this wasn't political in any way. I get it from like an outsider's perspective. Oh, maybe it's a little hurtful. But all he was saying was free Joe Kelly from the suspension. That's all. I mean, obviously you want to look into it. Free Joe Kelly from throwing at someone's head. Sure. Like, that could be
I think that's a tricky thing. It kind of sounds like, he's disrespecting MLB's decision and that people should throw at heads and they're trying to crack down. And it's obviously a gray area. But I do have to say, I do appreciate Trevor Bauer getting more eyes back on the game of baseball, even though, unfortunately, it is at the expense of my Astros, who deserve it. But anyway, moving along. Forgiveness is king. You wrote the playbook today for DFS. I was just wondering, we're going to flip over to NFL here in a second because we've got all kinds of news coming out. Can you give us a couple of plays for today? I had one or two I noticed, but I'm sure you did a lot more research than I did. What pitchers do you like today?
It's very top heavy, and I think it's obviously Shane Bieber is the number one option on the board. It's going to be tough to afford him on FanDuel. He's $12,000. That is not cheap. I think he's more affordable on DraftKings. But I mean, there are 10-6 is a good price for him, and he has a 40% K rate. Now the thing on FanDuel, he has 270 plus fantasy point games. If you had a crystal ball and told me he was going to put up 70, I would figure it out. But putting up 70 is not just an everyday thing. So Bieber, I think Dinelson Lamet is a great play. We were just talking about the Padres. Texas offense sucks. Joey Gallo might run into home run. He has 3 and 4.
He's reading my notes, friends. We did not talk about this. My two are Bieber versus Pittsburgh and Lamet versus Texas. Do we just think alike because we work at Fantasy Alarm, or is that obvious?
I think it's obvious. Yeah, I think.
Okay, all right, it's obvious.
Obvious is.
So you guys probably figured this out. Yeah.
And then if we move over to the diamond here, I think the best play on the board, regardless of price, and I'll just go right to him, is Jesse Winker. He's the cover of my playbook. I don't know if anyone has noticed what Jesse Winker has done. Last 10 games, his slash is 571, 667, 1,321 with 6 home runs, 3 doubles, 9 RBIs, 9 runs scored. And he's moved to third tonight. And Adam Wainwright, since 2016, can't pitch against lefties. He's allowed a 350 WOBA every season or since. So I think Jesse Winker, regardless of price, is my favorite bat on the board.
I like it. And one other bat I noticed is on DraftKings, AJ Pollock is only 3,900 facing Kikuchi, and Pollock's batting 304 versus lefties this season. In general, I think you can get a lot of affordable Dodgers. Just wait for that lineup to come out because they do a lot of changes. Will Jock Peterson be? And but they're pretty inexpensive. And Kikuchi's just been they've been teeing off on him all around the league. So I think that's a good matchup. Indians versus Pittsburgh in general. Also, I would take I think I have Franmil. He wasn't too expensive either. So, all right, some good recommendations there. But you can get all of James's recommendations over at fantasyalarm.com. And don't forget, we do also have a lineup generator, which is bonkers cool. Everybody wins when they use that. So try our draft lineup generator and read our playbook and put it together yourself too. Do it however you want to do it, but go out there and win. We're going to help you win. If you have any questions, tweet us, send us a message, go to our online chat. We've got you there. All right, pop over to NFL. Most recent news, Tyreek Hill just left practice about an hour ago with a hamstring injury. He walked off on his own, but level of concern here.
Until more comes out, I don't know if there's any concern. I mean, hamstrings can be pretty fickle, but they also could be nothing. So I don't have a level of concern until the Chiefs give us one to start panicking with. So still draft him at wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, whichever or 4, 2 through 4, whatever he's being drafted at, somewhere in that range. But I mean, if it is serious, Sammy Watkins is also out, then we're getting a massive bump to guys like Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson. Yep. So, I mean, if you are on the clock in a best ball, maybe you slow down. I hate when that happens. I'm not going to lie. But maybe you wait until, or maybe you just take a stab on Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson if you're drafting tonight, because who knows what's going to happen to Tyreek Hill in the upcoming weeks.
Absolutely. Now, probably the biggest news of the week, because, AJ Green also has a hamstring injury. Are we surprised? Actually, are you in or out on AJ Green? I feel like people fall in one camp or the other.
I love AJ Green, the player, and I've loved AJ Green. I think it's very hard not to like his career thus far. I mean, 100+ targets every year he's played, even in seasons where he's only played 9 or 10 games. But I mean, he's 32. The Bengals have a pretty potent offense when you factor in Mixon's end of season. He was great last year. How many times is he going to rush a game? All 4 of those games, he had 20+ rushes. That's going to take away from Burrow. They obviously drafted Burrow. They drafted T. Higgins. They improved their offensive line for Mixon. Tyler Boyd had 148 targets last year. And if you remember, Joe Burrow loves slot receivers. Justin Jefferson was his slot receiver. 111 receptions just last year in college. So I'm not in love with AJ Green. I think if he fell to me, but I've seen AJ Green go as high as 5th round in some cases, 6th round. I probably wouldn't go there. I'd rather draft Tyler Boyd around that same ADP. So he's okay if he slips. I'm not this isn't the AJ Green of old. So I'm not expecting 1,000+ yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, 32 years old. They don't usually get more healthy at that age. Already tweaked a hammy, had ankle surgery last year, missed an entire season last year, hasn't played a complete season in a long time. So, yeah, I'm also out on AJ Green. Now, probably one of the bigger stories out is that Miles Sanders is not listed as day-to-day, but is listed as week to week. Now, there's been a lot of helium for Miles Sanders. They've come out. They've said he's the guy we're going to get the ball to. He's going to lead this backfield. And then yesterday, Boston Scott also out on a lower body injury. Now, that's day-to-day. What is the panic level for Philadelphia? How do you feel about taking Miles Sanders right now?
I mean, there's sources within Philadelphia that have said it's not an issue and he's going to be ready and, just pump the brakes. I mean, I think he was being overdrafted to begin with. He's being drafted as early as 8 in some drafts. And I think that's a little too high. I mean, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, I'd probably take before him. And I've seen him go before both those guys. I think just people are just so we need running back. And I'm also in that camp. But I mean, 1.8 is really expensive for Miles Sanders. I don't think we should worry about the injury if there are people in his camp saying he's ready. But the season is 20 to depending on when you 20 days away. So, I mean, maybe if you have Sanders, go pick up Corey Clement or Boston Scott if he's not drafted, which I'm sure he's drafted in almost every 12-team league. But if you have a worry about Scott, then go pick up Clement. So.
If I'm worried about Sanders, should I maybe take a late round dart throw on Devonta Freeman?
That is a fair point. But Devonta Freeman, I think, is just demanding too much money. And that's kind of been the reason why he's not signed, because there's been plenty of places he could have gone and plenty of places that wanted him, including Philly all off season. But it just seems like the asking price is too high. I think you're onto something. If they signed Freeman, I think that's when we start questioning if Miles Sanders if the injury is serious, because why would they sign Devonta Freeman if all offseason they haven't been willing to pay Devonta Freeman? They haven't been willing to pay Devonta Freeman, and then suddenly they are. That's when I think we question whether Miles Sanders is really hurt and if he's being drafted too high, which I already think is the case. But if Freeman were to be signed, then I think it's all right, well, maybe we should definitely, do some research and pump the brakes on taking Sanders so high.
I mean, Philadelphia should be no stranger to dealing with injuries. I mean, half their squad was injured last year. And I would imagine they may be feeling a little nervous, even if they do believe he's coming back. And they did double down and say he's the guy. But that almost makes me more nervous. And now we've got Boston Scott day to day. I wouldn't be surprised if they do make a call. And all the other vets are gone. I mean, LaShawn McCoy is gone. Frank Gore is gone. Even Lamar Miller is already gone. That's crazy. That pretty much leaves Devonta Freeman. So let's keep an eye on that one. One other quick thing. Mike Evans says that Tom Brady is trying to make him a living legend too. Does this make you bump up Mike Evans a little in your draft? I think Chris Godwin is pretty much universally going first of those two Tampa Bay receivers, but are we getting a hint that maybe it's going to be Mike?
I have been team fade Mike Evans all offseason. I just think Brady has been someone getting the ball out of his hands too fast for Evans to develop down the field. And that's been his game for quite some time. Also, he's really good in the red zone, but hey, guess what? There's a pretty good rapport between that Brady and Grande guy in the red zone as well. And it's worried me. I get, if Howard were here, I think he would call it lip service, and I would agree because, I mean, Mike Evans is a great receiver, but there are so many weapons. Godwin fits Brady's MO so well. He's going to 150 targets. I'm not reading into it, and it's not really making me want Mike Evans anymore. I think on the bold predictions, I made him my bust. So I'm going to stick with that.
The main thing that it does for me is make me know that Tampa Bay is excited. Right. And I think they're buying into the Tom Brady hype. And they're sneaking up in my power rankings just from this. Like, I just feel like it might be infectious down there. So I'm kind of excited for all of them. Actually, Tom Brady's second chance or to prove or whatever. And these guys to have a guy who doesn't throw as many picks. All right. Last 5 minutes. I got to ask you, maybe we'll even spend 6 or 7. So yesterday, SiriusXM had their series of first of a series of host drafts, and it ended up coincidentally a lot of the Fantasy Alarm crew was involved. There were 5 teams from Fantasy Alarm, as well as some other notable people. Let's see, we've got Dan Klaskins, Joe Bartel, Scott Engel, Bob Harris from Football Diehards, Win Daily Sports, and of course the lovely Lisa Ann. I want to know, hey, take a look at this draft board. What do you like? What do you not like? Who do you think is going to win? Is someone from FA going to take home the trophy?
So let's start. I'll just start Fensty. I think that first off, I love his receiving corps, and that's from tight end and wide receiver. I think he's going to be elite there. And I can even say McCaffrey because he might catch 100 passes. Right. I think
Fensty had the number 1 pick, obviously.
Right.
And it's half-point PPR, I should say.
It is half-point PPR. Okay, so I mean, I think Fensty's going to hurt a little bit at running back, especially when Marlon Mack inevitably loses his job to Jonathan Taylor at some point. And, I'm not in love with Jonathan Taylor, but I do think, they used a second-round pick on him. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. I like his team. I think the running back depth could bite him. Howard, classic Howard, takes Jordan Howard as his RB4. Yep. I think Howard has a strong team. I think you, Rick, and Jim actually stood out the most to me. I love Rick and the Wolfman's 4 running backs in the first 5 rounds. And they followed up with 3 receivers. I think Marvin Jones in the 7th round, he's one of my favorite receivers on the board this year. Yep. I think that was and then your boy Tom Brady there in the 9th round. I love what the Wolfman and Colton did. I think you started off with the smart system as well. I think that it is a situation this year where we need to stack running backs. I know Adam Ronis has been completely on the other side of the fence where, if you have that one workhorse, you can get around drafting, guys later. I know Jordan Howard has been a favorite of ours at Fantasy Alarm for like an RB2, but I wouldn't be comfortable with Jordan Howard as an RB2, so I think you did a great job. Aaron Jones, I mean, he scored 20 touchdowns last year. It's hard to not like him in the 2nd round. Adam Thielen is poised for a massive breakout, especially with no Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, question marks early on the year. So I love what you did. Terry McLaurin, I think people are missing the fact that, yes, Dwayne Haskins sucked, but the production between Haskins and McLaurin did not drop off at all. And, you can have a crappy quarterback and still have a productive receiver as he's throwing the ball 15 times a game. So I think you did a great job, and Deshaun Watson in the 6th round is tremendous value. And then I do like what Jim did. I mean, the Tyreek Hill thing, obviously we have to wait because we don't know how serious it is. But 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds. He got an elite quarterback in Russell Wilson. And I guess I'm a little worried about Jim's receivers because I don't love Stephon Diggs in Buffalo because I don't love Josh Allen. I do not like Josh Allen, the passer, because Josh Allen, the passer, was the worst rated quarterback. And he's just not accurate. So how is there's a lot of mouths to feed for Allen, and he's going to take a lot of the touchdowns away himself in the red zone. Jerry Jeudy as his wide receiver 3. There's a lot of receiving options in that corps. And then Emmanuel Sanders, I like, but very old in wide receiver years. So I think if I'm ranking the FA drafts, I would probably go you and Colton 1A, 1B, Howard 3, Jim 4, and I love you, Fensty, so much. I love you, Fensty Sports for life, but rounding out the back end. But I think you guys win the draft. I like Bob Harris' team. Miles Sanders, James Conner, David Johnson. I'm on the David Johnson bandwagon this year. I think he's I think he's gonna get 250 touches and really shine in Houston. So I really like what Bob Harris did. If I were to pick out one team outside of FA Nation that I really like.
I really liked Bob Harris's team as well. And this, I should also mention, this is a 4-point per passing touchdown league, which also changed it just a tad, maybe for which quarterbacks you select. But this was a lot of fun. And it was so fast. Oh my gosh. We got it done in like an hour and a half. It was
not the best.
Beautiful.
It's not the best.
It was beautiful. So good. It was so fun. And so thank you for breaking that down. I think sometimes that's the best way to learn. One thing that I'm really a proponent of is don't go in with a hard and fast strategy. I actually didn't go in necessarily thinking I was going to take, back-to-back running backs. But when it fell that way in a half-point PPR, I was like, how can I not take it? I would have taken, if there weren't a running back I trusted as much as Aaron Jones, and I don't love Aaron Jones, but I do trust him to get into the end zone. Somebody's got to in Green Bay. And then I would have gone with a receiver. I'm not afraid of that. But you just got to read the room. And I'm really a proponent of taking value. If you just get a lot of value, then that's a way that you can win. So you just got to see what's happening. And I got lucky there. I've been getting a lot of the 10 pick in drafts, and I've been able to start. And this is exactly what happened here. Bob Harris took Michael Thomas. I've been getting him at 10 every time. And then I've been coming back around and grabbing Josh Jacobs or Austin Eckler. However, yesterday, the Miles Sanders news came out. So finally, as it should be, Josh Jacobs went before Miles Sanders, 1 pick before Miles Sanders. So he started Michael Thomas, Miles Sanders. But many times you can get Josh Jacobs or even Austin Eckler there, who Lisa Ann got, and that was a good pick. She started Devontae Adams and Austin Eckler from the 12th seat, which was a nice start as well. So
I can't believe one thing. I can't believe Derrick Henry before Dalvin Cook, huh? You were definitely not thinking Dalvin Cook was going to be there at 6.
Definitely not thinking Dalvin Cook was going to be there at 6, but I was totally fine with it. I'm not worried about the contract. I was like, give it all to me. I probably would have taken Derrick Henry actually at 6 if Cook had gone and not Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But, you don't know till that moment. Sometimes you just, for instance, I took as a very late pick Frank Gore, God knows why. And even as I pushed it, the computer asked me, you're about to draft Frank Gore. Are you sure?
Nope, I'm not, but here we go.
No, I'm not, but I'm going anyway. Let's do it. I think Adam Gase likes Frank Gore. So anyway, that has been another edition today, guys, of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. We had a lot of fun. As always, be sure to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, even on Instagram. We're here for you. Check out that DFS lineup generator and James Grande's DFS playbook for today if you really want to win big at DraftKings and FanDuel. And we will catch you next time.